how's everybody this wonderful day?
Fabulous.
Well, I think what we should do is have a new day called Compassion Day. Because I don't think there's anybody here that practices it enough. And you know how come? I don't have to know, but I can ask you this question. How have you been treating yourself lately? Okay, we don't even need to talk about that. So, yeah, I was quite surprised because Katie got a hold of me at the last minute and I said, well, compassion, there's your title, take it out on yourself first. But I never really thought about it, and then I did something that quite shocked me. And so that's the first point. Sometimes things aren't what we think. So I thought I knew what compassion is. So I thought, well, you know, like a lot of times I just go have a look at the dictionary. I wish I wouldn't have.
Oh, really?
I don't like the definition. Compassion is a feeling of pity, sympathy, and understanding for someone who is suffering, which is a small part of it. That right out of the dictionary. But I didn't stop there. I even went to Wikipedia. And it says, it's compassion involves feeling for another and is a precursor to empathy. And in common parlance, active compassion is the desire to alleviate another's suffering. So that's a starting point. I was quite disappointed, and I decided that I think that based on where I think people are here and where I am, we really need to work at redoing the definition. I can buy into that there's a certain caring and compassion that we have when we see people suffering or hurting, and in particular for me too, animals. I have a real thing about animals. Okay, especially with people that abuse them or anybody else of that. I have a problem with that. I guess we all do in a way. And that is definitely a big part of invoking the feeling within us. But, you know, it is very limited because compassion is much more than that. Marianne Williamson said that compassion links us to others. We share a common humanity and with a common wish to be happy, free from suffering, and to live with grace. And so really the idea of compassion and freedom from suffering, from my personal opinion, really doesn't have as much to do with other people because we care for other people whether they're hurting or not. Okay? We might go a little extra mile if a friend or someone we know is hurting to help out a bit. But we care for them whether they're hurting or not. Okay? So compassion then is a lot more than just suffering. It's how we interact and how we relate to and how we treat other people and other things in the world around us. And of course, the beginning point with that is really learning how to manage our own energy and our energy projection. You know, we can do nice things and resent it. Okay? I go through this thing right now. It's funny how these talks just come up right when I need to really look at that, you know. And we're going through this thing. It's been kind of a rough couple of 3 weeks because, you know, Anna went in last month with a kidney stone extraction and she was in 10 days ago to have her gallbladder out with a mass around it that was attached to the liver. So we're just waiting for the results of that. But my brother's been in there for 150 days in the hospital. I've been up to see him every day. And, you know, I find myself at times not wanting to go. Has anybody ever been in that? And one has to be very careful about that and to be real clear about what one's intention is, because one could go do things and resent doing them. And then how much compassion is there in doing the deed, but not having the feeling to back it up? So really, it's not as much about what we do, it's about who we are and what we take to any given situation. So for me, if I find myself slipping off on that, I catch it right away. Boom. And get back on. Well, why am I doing this? Am I going up there and doing this for my brother every day? So I asked myself that question. Because then I said, well, you know, you're pretty beat here. Why don't you take a day off? I couldn't do it, you see. Because then I realized that part of me going up there for him isn't just for him. I'm going and doing it for me. Okay? Because I need to do that. He's all the family I got left. Okay, so we all get into some of those situations sometimes. And so I need to do it for me. Okay? And so when I take that out there and come from that energy, and then my caring for him goes up a whole lot more. I have more energy that I can project and I can take to the field, because he's in a difficult place trying to stay positive. Can you imagine that? 150 days is a bit. Kind of like a marathon. And so part of going there is to keep the proper perspective. And it's not about what could have been done or what hasn't been done. It's all about what is. However, it's always about moving forward. What's next? Always about that. Folks, if you get into trouble and you bog down in having compassion for yourself or anybody else, it's because you're getting stuck in what is, or the way it could have been, or what was before all of this happened. You can't stay there, because spirit don't work that way. The only way spirit is stifled in this entire physical universe that we know is in humanity, where we try to stop things from moving forward. So, and it doesn't just apply to this situation, it's all of them. Our job is to keep moving forward, no matter what the situation or circumstance. Because if we move forward, we're in alignment with the way spirit works, and whatever it is that we're dealing with has an opportunity to be resolved. Notice I didn't say the way I want. However, it does have an opportunity to be resolved, and if one takes the applicable good consciousness to it, then the highest and best will work out for all concerned. Okay? Get off the idea of thinking that one knows the way that should be or how it has to be, because we're not that smart. We just think we are. Okay? So when I work with what happened with Anna or my brother, it's a little bit more intense because it's close, or with anybody. Compassion for me is holding and supporting the person in a vision of love, life, and light, knowing that they're whole, perfect, and complete in all ways, at all times, and that the divine healing presence of good and God is in them, is them, expresses through them, by means of them, in their own unique, special way, and a deep knowingness that they now experience perfect circulation, assimilation, and elimination in all of their bodily functions and physical affairs, and then know that the healing presence of good and God is working and brings to fulfillment the perfect healing. Amen. Okay? Now, when I learned this lesson, I always thought the perfect healing is a person gets up and walks and they're okay. So when I started my practitioner classes, and we were doing spiritual mind treatment in the CSL in order to get our practitioner license, we had to demonstrate clients and do prayer work for them, and then get a letter from them supporting the treatment at how it worked and the prayer work and how it facilitated their healing. So I'm really keen. I'm pumped. Okay, I got a lot of compassion and a lot of caring. I get my first 3 clients are all men over a period of about 3 months at different times, and they have all terminal cancer, and they're all having a terrible time. And I did my work, and I'm just keen and just pumped, and I'm excited. And so I go back to find out how they made out, and all 3 of them died. I go, this stuff doesn't work. I go, whoa! I had a real hard time with it because, you see, first off, I was attached to the outcome. Second off, I had my ego involved. So it was one of the starkest learning lessons of my life. And then the third thing, which became the most important thing that I learned, is sometimes passing is the healing. And so as I accepted that, understood that, then I take that same consciousness that I do now, what I just did, that same treatment, and I don't know what the healing is. It could be recovery or it could be passing. That's none of my business. My business is to do the treatment and to stand in that light with that person that I just did. And I even had people, I have a guy called me that was a former member of my church in Red Deer, and he was in the hospice, and he was not doing well, but he couldn't make that last step. So what did he do? He had his wife phone me and had me come up. And I spent a half an hour, 45 minutes with him. He wasn't lucid, but he knew I was there. And talked to him a bit and was with him, and I did the treatment and did my prayer, and he passed, just, shortly after. Because sometimes what compassion means is being in that light and holding that space where that higher power within that person has now got the freedom to assist the individual in their demonstration, because I work on the release of attachment to the physical and turning it over to the spiritual. Okay? Does it work? Well, I'd say 18 out of the last 20 times I've been called when somebody's near the end. Before I go to see them, I do that treatment, and the people generally say the same thing. Oh, you just missed them. They passed a few minutes ago. Yeah, because I was in the parking lot doing the treatment. So I already knew that. But it's easier to do it that way than to go be with the person, because sometimes people don't understand. See what I'm saying? And this way, it was, oh, you just missed. They just passed. I'd say to myself, yeah, I know. Okay. So there's different levels of understanding and compassion, but the most important thing, if you want to work at developing and having more compassion, you got to work at the person in the mirror. You got to do that, because your ability to have real compassion and caring for other people is limited to the compassion and caring one has for themselves. That's just the way it is. It can't be more out there than it is in here, because it's in here that you have it and you project it out there. So one of the key things that, like I was saying, with going to the hospital every day with my brother and that, is when I find myself slipping away from the point I want, I bring myself back to intention. What is my intention here? Hard question you got to ask yourself. Whenever you're doing something where you're caring or helping out or anything like that, doesn't matter what it is, little, big, get real clear on what is my intention. And then make sure your intention is clear to you and you're honorable, and then take your intention into whatever it is you're doing, and you'll always say the right thing or do the right thing or not say anything. Sometimes that's good too, believe me. Okay? So you would do that, but you have to learn to trust, and you have to learn to take it out on yourself first. And one of the things I thought, it would be really interesting if we could have kind of like a little, example to follow about something that we could work on a day-to-day basis. And I had two things that I come across, and one of them was one of my favorite stories that exemplifies compassion in the Bible, and it's Jesus, he's doing all his great things, and then one day he had this Roman centurion. Now, he wasn't just an ordinary dude. He was one of the top commanders. come to Jesus, and he had this servant that he loved. His slave, he loved him. And he was sick, and he was concerned, and he heard about Jesus and the healing that he did and the work that he did. And he come to Jesus and asked him if he would help. And Jesus was taken by him about the love and compassion that he had for his servant. He said, sure, let's go. And the guy said, well, I'm paraphrasing, by the way. I'm kind of like a top dog here, and, you're kind of on the out list. And, they're going to do you in here. And if I'm seen with you, you know how it's going to work. It's not good for everybody. It's not good for you anyhow, but it's not good for me. Well, maybe he didn't say that, but it sounds good. Anyhow, Jesus was just so amazed about the love this guy had. He didn't go, but he said, go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so it be done unto thee. And the servant was healed in the selfsame hour. Okay? It's the power of the spoken word and the belief. When you speak, that's why you don't have to be here to have someone do prayer work for you and have it work. That's not how it works. There's no barriers in this. All you have to do is be open and receptive. So I just finally took the next step here a while back with my brother and asked him if he'd be open and receptive if I did some spiritual work for him. Okay? And it was a big step for him to say yes. And he says, what do I got to do? I says, all you got to do is believe in the possibility. That's all. You don't have to know how it works. You don't have to understand it. Nothing. All you have to do is be open and receptive that the work's being done and something new and different is going to happen. That's all. Okay? So now that I got that working with the other stuff, I feel now that I've done everything to get him ready for the next stage of his journey, whatever that may be. I have my preferences, but I try to leave those out of the picture, because if I start getting attached to the outcome, I start becoming ineffective. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if there was another little easy thing sort of for us to kind of follow? This is the season of Lent. And in Christianity, it's a period of leading up to the crucifixion and the resurrection. At Easter, it's 40 days, which is representative of the 40 days that Jesus fasted in the desert. They probably didn't do 40 days. So 40 days in Scripture is used to represent a definite but complete period of time. So it's symbolic. It might not be 40 calendar years, okay? So be real clear about that. And so part of what this routine is fasting. And it's fasting from food and a lot of other things. And so I come across something which I thought was excellent. And it's called, Do You Want to Fast This Lent? And I thought when I was reading it, my goodness, if we did this kind of fasting, then that would build compassion inside of ourselves, for ourselves, and with everybody else. And then I was shocked at who wrote this and published it. It was Pope Francis. So we're going to have a little bit from the Pope today. He said, fast from hurting words and say kind words. Fast from sadness and be filled with gratitude. Fast from anger and be filled with patience. Fast from pessimism and be filled with hope. Fast from worries and have trust in God. Fast from complaints and contemplate simplicity. Fast from pressures and be prayerful. Fast from bitterness and fill your hearts with joy. Fast from selfishness and be compassionate to others. Fast from grudges and be reconciled. Well, that's a good one. And fast from words and be silent so you can listen. I thought that is an absolute excellent listing of the to-dos. And if we practice those each and every day, I do believe that that facility and that capacity to experience compassion, and it's not just suffering, it's everything that we do. Everything. You could be an artist and have compassion for the work that you're doing and the caring for the work. Listen to the group up here, the band, our band that sings. There's a lot of compassion from these people. If they didn't have compassion for what they were doing, we wouldn't be jumping around going, hoo-ah. We'd be sitting there going, ooh, I hope we get through this one. Right? And so the reason why we experience what they're giving the way they do isn't the compassion they have for us. It's the compassion they have for themselves for what they're doing. And they're sharing that with us, and that's really what compassion is, in my humble opinion. So I think that we need to have a real look at that, and a real way that we could look each and every day and everything we do and bring that compassion into it. I got to tell you though, sometimes when I do that, I get to be just like a wreck inside, you know. I don't get very strong emotionally. I get kind of, especially if I'm dealing with animals for some particular reason. My good buddy, his wife or his daughter works for ARCS, and his wife volunteers there. And then he gets the dogs that have been coming in that are abused, that need home care till they get ready for adoption, eh? And of course I go see him all the time, and you know, it's one of the hardest things in the world, right? For me, I tear up all the time after I leave that place. But as seeing that poor little dog abused that way, it just brings all kinds of weird feelings in me that I don't like him. I get angry, I guess. And yet then going to see him and watch the progress as he brings it to heel and see the love that this animal then develops from what he's given to him. So you could see the fear reciprocate and come back with love simply because that's what's being given. He could not do that work if he didn't have compassion. But having compassion also makes that work extremely difficult to do. Just remember that one next time when you're working on yourself. Sometimes extremely difficult to do. But it's something that we need to do. And, you know, I get all these questions from the kids at Christmas. They all want world peace. As soon as I get a kid that comes out, I drag the parents up and I tell them how they're going to help the kid do it by finding peace within inside themselves. Right? But now, after I'm doing this talk, it's kind of taken me to a different level. So instead of talking about finding peace within self, I'm going to talk about finding compassion within inside themselves. Because that seems to be a bigger picture. So sometimes when a guy goes to do these, I don't know whether you know that or it happens to Pat, she'll tell you that you pick it up and you look at it, and I got really angry seeing that dictionary definition. It took me a few days to get by that, by the way. Okay, then just switch and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? I got to do a talk here. Okay? So really, it's all about intention, it's all about you, and you're okay who you are, and you don't need to do a whole lot of stuff before you can start being more compassionate to yourself and being more compassionate to the world around you. Don't matter whether it's plant, animal, or rock, everything around us is part of what we are. And as we can take ourselves out into that and see it differently, it will respond and gives back. Animals, nature, other people will respond and give back. So this is kind of like a real nice upward spiral to hop into, rather than the downward spiral we've put ourselves in at times. So I know for myself, as I know for each and every one here, that there's an awakening within us today that who and what we are, exactly the way we are, right here and right now, is okay. And that there's a commitment within us to being more compassionate and understanding of our self-perceived frailties and a willingness to look beyond those and build strengths and take that out and share the highest and best that we are with all whom we come in contact with. So as we speak it and do it, only good prevails, and I know it to be so, and so it is.